have implemented this approach with positive outcomes. We have been working on creating the City of Sacramento Participatory Budgeting Playbook to guide our pilot project. Sacramento's participatory budgeting, again, prioritizes inclusion of historically underserved and excluded communities, equity, and leveraging of resources to most effectively use funding for maximum input. So thank you again for being here. Thank you, council members, Measure U members and city staff. And now I'd like to turn it over to our mayor, Mayor Steinberg.
Deborah, thank you very, very much for leading this press conference, but more importantly, together with Chair Kofer and the other members of the Measure U Advisory Committee, leading this new and vital effort for the city of Sacramento. You all deserve a lot of credit for your vision and your persistence. For nothing is easy when it comes to starting something that is new or unique. So in 2018, we took this question to the voters and asked them, are you willing to re-up Measure U and add a second half-cent to invest in inclusive economic development, to invest in our neighborhoods, to invest in disadvantaged neighborhoods, to invest in youth and our commercial corridors and workforce development and affordable housing and the creative economy? And the voters said yes. Quiet that guy down, please. You've heard enough from him. And the voters said yes. And for the last 3 years, we have embarked on a path together. Not always been smooth, but it has been forward thinking. And it has begun to change the arc of what we consider to be core priorities in our city. And that is to invest in our communities and neighborhoods. Participatory budgeting and what you are putting forward today takes inclusive economic development to the next level. Because what it says is that when the voters approve a measure like you, they must have a direct say in how that money is spent. And it is powerful. When you think about what's missing in our democracy, not just in the city, but throughout the country and in some ways the world, is that people feel left out. They feel disempowered. They don't believe that their voices actually matter. And what we are attempting to do here with a start, and it's only a start, is to say that your voice matters and that when you weigh in, not only will the elected officials consider what you are saying, but we will in fact do what you have said and recommended. Now we're starting with $1 million, and whatever the exact technical law is, we intend this to be binding. And here is a great challenge and opportunity to develop a model that says people who are elected ultimately do have to have a say in most decisions, most big picture decisions. But we ought to do participatory budgeting for the entire budget, What we develop here, we ought to make part of the culture and part of the tradition, part of the expectation in Sacramento, that we're going to help and only help empower the communities to organize and then tell us, all of us, what we need to be doing better, where we need to be investing more, and how we can genuinely move towards equity among and within all of our neighborhoods of the city. So I commend you. I look forward to not only seeing how this works, but I look forward to seeing this being a great success and are expanding this in the years to come. Thank you. Let me introduce now my friend and colleague, who along with Councilmember Vang has been a strong leader in pushing community, engaging the community and empowering the community. And that is Councilmember Katie Valenzuela.
Thank you. I'm so proud to be standing here today at the launch of the participatory budgeting pilot. Just under 2 years ago, I got to sit at a table with some of our county's leading advocates, and we started the People's Budget Sacramento. And we started the People's Budget Sacramento on a simple premise that the money came from us and that the money should be spent in a way that serves us, that we should have a voice in that process and determining how that money is spent. And this pilot today is just the first time that we are going to try this as a city. And I'm so proud that the mayor and so many of my colleagues supported this, and no louder advocate than the woman standing behind me, Councilmember Vang, to try this out as a pilot. But a pilot is a very important phrase. This is a pilot. We're going to try this out, but the goal is this is not the only, this is not the sole time. This is not one time. A pilot is meant to be a foundation upon which we learn, we try, and then we continue to build. That this is really just the first step in what I hope will be an ongoing commitment from our city, not just to expand the pot of money that is available for this direct process, but as the mayor said, to take the lessons learned from this process to implement it in how we make decisions, to make our whole budget process and our city decision making more accessible to the community, to figure out who those partners are that we can start working with to bring more of the community into City Hall as we are deliberating these really tough decisions. So I am really excited to see how this pilot goes. You may have noticed that none of my communities in my district are included in this pilot, and that's okay with me, because we're starting with the communities that have been the most left behind. We're starting with the communities that really have been most disenfranchised, that really have the highest level of need, and starting with the communities with the highest level of need, making sure it works for them is going to make sure it works for all of us. And so I'm really excited to see how this goes, to being actively engaged. And I hope everybody will be, even if you live outside of these neighborhoods. This process isn't meant to be exclusionary. It's meant to be inclusive. It's meant to be an open door so that we can really learn and hopefully expand this to additional communities with additional funding in the very near future. So I'm really honored and excited to be here today, and really commend the Measure U committee for all of their work on this. They are not paid to do this work, right? These are all volunteers standing behind me who do a lot of other things in their spare time. And this is how important this is. This is a real moment in our city's history to try to do things differently. And they've been leading the way on this. And I can't thank them enough for all of the time and energy they've spent outside of their jobs, outside of their many other commitments, to make sure that this process works well for our community here. So with that, I will wrap up and introduce very proudly my sister on the dais, Councilmember Mai Vang.
Hello, everyone. It's such an honor to be standing up here in solidarity with our Mayor Steinberg, Councilwoman Valenzuela, the co-chair, Dr. Flo Kofer, and the entire Measure U committee. Thank you so much, Deborah, for your heart and hustle, to the ad hoc, and also want to give a shout out to District 8 appointee Tracy Thomas as well for his heart and hustle. I'm really excited because today is the official launch of this pilot, the participatory budgeting pilot, which is going to give our residents an opportunity to directly decide how to spend dollars, from our city budget that's going to impact their lives. I think most importantly for me, this process, the reason why it's so powerful, because it's really about bringing people closer to the government. Sacramento, this pilot in particular is really designed to make sure that we are directing funds into the neighborhoods that have historically suffered from a lack of public investment. And I want to take this time to thank the Measure U committee members for their hard work and their commitment in prioritizing equity and ensuring that we actually direct these dollars to the neighborhoods that need it the most. At the end of the day, for me, this is really about agency and ensuring that residents truly has the power to make the decision of how we are to spend these dollars. If you are a resident in South Sacramento or North Sac and you have an idea of a proposal for these dollars, this is your chance to get involved. This process is really about making sure that residents have real power over real money. And we need to hear voices and perspectives. And I really hope that every resident will get involved. If you live in the North area, in the South area, that's going to be really important. I think we always have our traditional folks that show up to our city council meetings, which are great, but this is really about reaching the residents that we often don't hear. And we want to make sure that they are truly part of the process. Something I believe is that the people who are closest to the problems, they're closest to the solutions. And I really look forward to working with the Measure U committee, working with our grassroots organizations to make sure that we reach every resident in these neighborhoods. I'm really excited. Again, today is the official launch, but the work is just beginning. We're going to be out in the community, making sure that we involve every resident from these neighborhoods. And next, I'd like to introduce Michael Cusack of the Participatory Budgeting Project, who has actually been working with the Measure U committee to really give us what the next steps are, what's the timeline, and what can we expect to see in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you, Councilmember Vang. It's really a privilege to be here. I would like to congratulate, first of all, the city of Sacramento for joining dozens of cities around the country, from New York City to Seattle, Los Angeles, Denver, Philadelphia, and hundreds of cities around the world in this cutting edge of the movement to democratize local governance. I'd like to commend the leadership of Mayor Steinberg, Councilmember Valenzuela, Councilmember Vang, and the rest of the city council in taking this brave step. I'd also like to acknowledge and commend the leadership of the Measure U committee, who as custodians of this process have been handling every decision about how this will work in Sacramento with real care. I'm now going to explain some of the ways that residents can get involved in the process, beginning as soon as next month with the idea collection process. Beginning in the first week of April, residents, as has been mentioned, will be able to submit ideas for how this money will be spent, up to that $1 million that are allocated for this process. Idea collection will involve events, voting booths, idea collection stations where residents can submit their ideas, discuss solutions to the problems that they face in their communities. And that will happen up until mid-May, at which point we will turn to the proposal development process, where residents of the priority neighborhoods will be able to come together in committees to prioritize the projects that will end up on the ballot. They'll work very closely with city staff to vet these ideas for feasibility, do the research that will go into providing cost estimates and timelines for each project, and making sure that voters can make an informed decision on the ballot. Residents of those priority neighborhoods will then be able to vote in August. Voting will take place from August 1st till the end of the month, at which point projects will begin implementation. Once again, I'd like to congratulate the city of Sacramento, and I'll hand it over to Dr. Dana Kivel to walk us through next steps.
So you've heard how the process works. Now the next steps are, how do you get involved? And what we're looking for now is for you to, watch this press conference so you can tell your friends and family and community members about the fact that participatory budgeting is happening in Sacramento and get the word out. And we're also wanting to get the word out to community-based organizations, because there's $5,000 available in mini grants to give these organizations to help us do the outreach and get the word out. So get the word out. That's the main message here. And how do you do that? If you want more information, we've got information sessions for residents and for community-based organizations. And the best way to do that, we've got some handouts here we're going to give to folks that are in the room. But otherwise, go to cityofsacramento.org/PB. That's where you can find the most up-to-date information about the process. And we'll also have information there about idea collection once we get going with that process. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Steinberg.
Oh, Michael has handouts, please, for any members of the media to get the background. So my colleagues and I include as colleagues, the Measure U Advisory Committee, we stand for questions. If you have any questions about the details or the motivation behind today's announcement. Any questions? I know we have some reporters online as well.
Chris Hooks from Cap Radio has a question.
Okay, hi, Chris.
Hey, Mayor, how's it going?
Good.
I have a few questions. One, I'll probably just ask over email because it's more of a technical question, but thinking in regards to the CBOs and sort of thinking back to redistricting, how is the city going to ensure that the CBOs are actually doing the right outreach and quality outreach to make sure that the right people in the northern Sacramento area and South Sacramento areas that these are a part of, that the PB is a part of, are actually getting involved. And then the second question is, what at the end of this will make this successful for it to continue and even have more money put into it?
Well, I'll try the first answer, and I'll ask Council members Valenzuela and Vang or anybody else to add to. I think your two questions are related. For me, as mayor, the definition of success will be centered on how many people and how many communities actually participate in this decision making. And in order to ensure that we hear from voices who have not been traditionally heard, we are going to have to go as far and as deep as we can in engaging as many CBOs and as many community leaders and as many residents as we can. And this will be a success no matter what, but I think it'll be an even larger success if we can engage many more people than have been traditionally engaged in the traditional process, which requires you to come to City Hall or to participate on Zoom. And we want to get beyond that. Last thing, the best politicians, and I got a couple behind me here, are the ones who go door to door and knock on doors to ask people for their support in a campaign. Well, this is a different kind of a campaign. It's a campaign to get people engaged and to ensure that people's voices are heard, especially where they have not been heard in the past. Members, you wanna?
Yeah, Michael and Deborah will come up here to share a little bit about the implementation, but I think for me, at the end of the day, it's really the one-on-one that's going to make a huge difference. CBOs are our trusted messengers on the ground working with our families already. We have other trusted messengers like our faith-based organization and even our ethnic media radio, right? Making sure that we utilize all platforms to reach our hardest to reach communities. I truly believe we got to lean in on them, on our trusted messenger, on your next door neighbors, right? It's all about the one-on-one and canvassing. Before I usually do an event, I'm always out in the community canvassing the neighborhood, right? Making sure we put a flyer at their door to let them know that this is coming. This is really a grassroots effort, and that's what's going to take, right? Not your traditional methods, but back to basic organizing one-on-one, reaching the residents directly, knocking on the doors to let them know that this is happening and that this is really about bringing the people closer to government, and that truly they are the one with the power, with the agency to decide how these dollars are going to be spent. Really looking forward to that and going back to organizing one-on-one to reach every residence in our neighborhoods.
Other questions? Oh, Deb, go ahead. No, about the process, please.
Yeah, I mean, I want to echo a lot of what has been said. So part of the mini grant process and engaging trusted messengers, as Council Member Vang said, is we really want to identify and recognize that it is those organizations, entities, neighborhood groups, mothers clubs, parent groups who have the deepest connection, relationship, and trust with folks who live in neighborhoods. And so we are casting a wide net. We are being very intentional, the Measure U Committee, about not going to kind of the usual suspects of nonprofits or CBOs, but we're implementing a process where we provide resources to community groups who are very grassroots and can reach folks in different ways. I want to just also speak a little bit to success. The mayor outlined just kind of numbers of people reached. I think we're really looking, there is a robust evaluation process also attached to this pilot project. We have spoken to all of our council members to really ask them, what would success look like? And our Measure U committee has also been thinking about what is really going to look like success for the Measure U committee. And a lot of things we heard were things like building trust, making people feel like they actually have a connection to local government, really looking at folks who are traditionally disengaged. And we often talk about these communities as hard to reach. I like to refer to them as hardly reached. We have to come up with different strategies and approaches to meet people where they live, work, play, pray, shop, learn, and grow old. This is about us engaging in a different way, and that is going to be part of our metrics for how we define success.
Any other questions? Chris?
Yeah, just because no one else has questions, I guess. My technical question
Okay.
is the 5,000, the mini grant money coming from the $1 million participatory budgeting pot or from something else? And then also, are CBOs expected to reach out to the city, or is the city doing outreach to them?
So the first question, is it coming out of the $1 million? No, it's coming out of part of the funding for implementation and evaluation of the overall program. And we have been getting the word out to community-based organizations, and they can attend these information sessions. Again, it's about getting the word out formally, informally, through press releases, other ways, and through these information sessions, one of which is happening this evening at 5:30. Is that correct? So tonight at 5:30. There'll be another one set up on the 17th at 5:30. And again, it's about going to the cityofsacramento.org/PB website to register for these mini sessions, to learn about how you can apply as a community-based organization. The deadline for those applications is March 18th.
And just to clarify, there were $225,000 that were approved by the council for implementation. So that $5,000 is coming out of those funds. Just wanting to clarify the amount of money that was allocated for implementation as well.
On top of the $1 million. On top of yes. All right. Well, we want to thank you all.
I did have one question.
We did.
Is the city fighting to keep the zoo, and additionally, will these the budget here will allow?
Well, is the city fighting to keep the zoo? As you know, the city of Elk Grove has an exclusive period to negotiate with the folks in the zoo, and we're going to wait to see what happens there. We love our zoo. We also have a lot of other important priorities around equity, around affordable housing, around investing in young people, around making sure we're investing in our forgotten commercials, too often forgotten commercial corridors. And so we have a lot of priorities and higher priorities, frankly. And so we will see what happens. You know, I said it before, we're not in competition with Elk Grove. We're one region, and we'll see how that ends up. We're always open to the discussions with the leaders of the zoo, but let's see what happens first in Elk Grove. Okay. And you know, if the people who participate in participatory budgeting say the zoo is the most important thing, well, then we'll listen to that too. All right. Thank you all very